What's going on, folks? I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and join on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week, we're going over UFC Vegas 24, headlined by Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum, a fight that we were supposed to get way back at UFC 234. I believe that was February of 2019. The morning of the fight, Robert Whittaker has to pull out due to some sort of digestive system issue, something I'm assuming that had to do with his weight cut. And that fight gets pulled. If you guys remember, Kelvin Gastelum was sitting ringside the entire time holding a belt. I believe it was Henry Cejudo's belt at the time. And he was acting like, oh, the guy didn't make the fight. I guess I'm the champion now. So that definitely cursed him as he was forced to fight Israel Adesanya a couple months after that and gets, gives us a fight of the night or a fight of the year type of performance, but gets absolutely torched up in that fifth round. And then eventually, goes on to lose that fight via unanimous decision. Very fun fight it was between Adesanya and Gastelum, but now a couple years later, 2 years later, we are getting the fight that we were originally supposed to get for the middleweight strap back in February of 2019. So I'm happy to be here. Always fun doing this live edition for you guys. I have about 4 more breakdowns that I need to actually record and post on the Patreon. Again, just so you guys know, this is the live version of the MMA Lockcast. So you guys get a little bit a briefer of a version or a little bit more concise of a version of the breakdowns compared to what you guys actually get with the Patreon version. And then obviously the pre-recorded one that I release shortly thereafter. That one should be coming out, hopefully in the next, obviously this stream will probably take me up to about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then I got to process that video. And then hopefully it should come out just before midnight tonight. So if you guys want to hear my further or more in-depth thoughts about all these matchups, that's where you guys are going to find them. All right. Let's. I got a couple things I want to hammer right off the top. Let's see what the people in the chat are already saying here. We already got 60 people in the chat here joining us on this Tuesday night. As you guys already know, 8 o'clock every fight week on Tuesday nights is the spot to be if you guys are looking for some betting tips for this coming weekend's fights. Let's see what people in the chat are saying. Harman Sarai in here nice and early. Shout out to you. Brian Timko is saying someone disliked the video a half hour before it even started. What a knob. Exactly. Yeah, you got some haters when people are disliking the videos for sure. They can't be disliking it a lot. If it's 50-50 split down the middle, then you might want to reconsider what you're doing. But there will always be haters out there. That's definitely something that you have to expect coming in this line of work. But we got a lot more lovers than we have haters. So if you guys do enjoy what you guys are getting on my channel, please do hit that like, show your boy some support. And there's definitely the way that it goes. Ty Drucken is saying if Alfred doesn't make an appearance, I'll be acting unusual. You'll probably have to wait for him for one of the next streams. I appreciate. I know you guys love some Alfred, but he's not coming on this one. I apologize. SKD is saying, "Lock, my boy. Congrats on your win streak. Was a good weekend for lots of people. Also feels good to cash those tickets before dinner time. Exactly. I love me the early fights. Like the afternoon fights that we had on that UFC ABC card. That was great. And obviously, the win streak is great and all. That's me going back to the old school lock of the night way. And I don't give a fuck if people are calling me squares out here. Bet my minus 180, minus 220 favorites. That's the lock of the night. Why the fuck would I name myself the lock of the night if I'm not going to be taking those types of shots? I know there's a lot more sharper guys out there that could probably give you guys good looks on underdogs and slight favorites. I have good spots on underdogs, that's for sure. But I'm not going to be leaning on the slight favorites as much anymore unless I'm very, very convicted in doing so. Let's see what else everybody else is saying here. Again, appreciate everybody commenting, liking, and subscribing. Just want to catch up with the chat here before we get the show on the road. I will be doing a quick recap of my past weekend. UFC Rob in the chat. Shout out to my guy Big Zomega in the chat as well, and my guy Robert Chicken Wings. Pain ain't no lock, fam. She's been gone too long to have to trust. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Sarich 123 Halifax tuning in. Shout out to my guys over there on the Maritimes. That is somewhere that I definitely have on my bucket list that I want to go out to and probably catch up with the Fight Night Picks guys. I know they're from out there as well too. Jose Lopez is saying, "Lock, give us the locks for this week. I really need them." The lock of the night play is already posted on the Patreon, and I do have to stay humble to those guys and show everybody who appreciation that's actually on the Patreon. $5 a month, they get early access to all my picks, and then obviously when I'm on a 3-event winning streak or longer, I don't post my picks for free. They're only on the Patreon. So if you want just the lock of the night play, I apologize, but you're gonna have to go on over to the Patreon parlay. However, you can still dissect the breakdowns that I'm about to give you guys, and you can figure out which one that I feel most confident about. William Hagmeister, what's going on, buddy? What's up, Log? Taking it light this week, volume wise, when big on Nemkov and Bobby Knuckles. I can't wait to get into Bellator, and that's exactly what I'm expecting to do as soon as I wrap up this the podcast, and then obviously editing the pre-recorded one. But I do want to get into the two light heavyweight Grand Prix matchups that are coming up this weekend. So those two breakdowns should hopefully drop on the Patreon tonight, and I'm hoping to have at least a bet on one of them. Rex Lee with the hardest working man in the biz, even though you faded young. I know my guy Rex Lee is all over those Korean fighters. So if he had told me that we were going to get Daun Yunga Gomedov, then I probably would have bet on my guy Jung, but probably not. William Hagmeister is saying, guys who eat the chalk get paid. Yeah, good point. All right, let's get into the show already. Let's not waste too much time. So I do obviously have my beautiful little graphics that I wanted to have in time for the last couple of streams, but just didn't have the opportunity. But I am getting it going for this time around. So first and foremost, I'd like to go over my last two events. Since it was, two events over 1 week, and we had Bellator 256 for first and foremost. And my dog of the night play there was the Lyoto Machida 1 unit at plus 266. I did expect to see a little bit better of a cardio performance from Lyoto Machida. I did expect him to go out there and show us a little bit better takedown defense for at least 3 rounds. Give me 3 rounds, Lyoto. He only gave us one good round where he was really putting it on Ryan Bader, and I'm sure a lot of people were biting their nails if they were parlaying Ryan Bader at that line. But then Bader, second round, just really kicked it into gear and was able to take over with his grappling. Really put a beating on Lyoto Machida there. So I didn't mind that plus 266 shot. I thought Machida was still quite competitive in his past fights, and I thought, it was a good spot to take that plus 266. And then obviously the lock of the night play was Kat Zingano against Olivia Parker. Under 2.5. It opened up at plus 160, and shout out to all the low limit bangers going out there and putting their 20 or $100 on it and trying to, just obliterate that line. Pretty much right after I placed my $400 at minus 171 on Zingano, that line was starting to skyrocket up to that minus 190, 195 range. So shout out to everybody on the Patreon that was able to get on that line before I got too out of whack. But as soon as I saw the tape on Olivia Parker, I'm like, under 2.5. Let me hit that shit. And I did have a little bit on track on Zingano via submission, or I believe it was around plus 220-ish. But yeah, that was a very good event for us. So plus 1.34 units on Bellator. Nice, clean, tidy. Again, lost on the dog of the night play, but I'm not too mad at taking a plus 266 shot as long as the lock of the night play ensures us that profit. Then moving on to UFC Vegas 23, and we go pretty much, I'd call it a sweep here. I put a 0.25 unit stab on Jack Shore to win in round 3. I'm not mad at losing that, especially if it's at plus 1,400. So that's the only play that we miss on. Dog of the night play comes through in the co-main event. Plus 122 on Arnold Allen. Very close fight, but it came down to those 2 key moments in rounds 1 and 2 where we saw the Sadiq Youssef get rocked in both of those rounds. Arnold Allen very clean, crisp, and tidy with his own striking approach, just as he always is. His striking defense is definitely up to par. Sadiq Youssef never really had him in any crazy trouble, but Arnold did have success in those first 2 rounds, and that was important for him to secure that decision victory. So good win for us there. And then obviously the lock of the night play, a little bit chalky, but it doesn't matter because that shit cashes. 5 units at minus 225 for Joe Selecki over Jim Miller. First round, a little bit sketchy. Don't get me wrong. I was definitely sweating it out when we saw Joe Selecki just pull guard the way that he did and then spend the majority of that round under him. But then He went out there, did exactly what I thought he would, which is get Jim Miller down time and time again and control him from that top position and stay active enough that the referee didn't actually have to stand them up, even though I do believe that he did warn him a couple times. But I'm glad that Joe Selecki hit. I wish that he cast that round 3 prop for us unofficially, but I will also take that lock of the night money, cashing that minus 225 play. So all in all, plus 3.19 units on UFC Vegas 23, a very successful weekend for us. What is that? Plus 3.4, 3.5, 4.5-ish units on the weekend for us. I'm very, very happy with that. I don't mind that at all. Again, we're in the right direction. That's 7 straight winning events, and I'm hoping to tie my record this weekend. My record is actually 9 straight winning events. So we got Bellator on Friday and we got UFC on Saturday. If I can hit both of those, we've tied my longest winning streak in terms of events, and that's all by going back to the credentialed and the patented lock of the night method, which is just find that one safe spot and then go ahead and sprinkle on a dog play as a cherry on top, as a bonus if it cashes. But in terms of Lachlan, I play nothing worse than minus 350. But if I can find anything better than that, obviously better odds, minus 150, minus 180, minus 200, whatever the fuck it is, as long as it's not worse than minus 350. And I can't remember the last time I played anything over minus 300. I think it was Colby Covington against Tyron Woodley, but that one was almost a no-brainer. Had to do that shit. So happy to move along and continue this winning streak for sure. All right, let's get this show on the road. 7 straight winning weeks. Timothy Triano is saying winning streak jinx was just set by you. I hope not. I hope that my plays this weekend will come through. All right, let's move along to the first fight of the night. I don't want to waste too much time here. First up, we got Austin Hubbard going up against Dakota Bush. Dakota Bush coming in on short notice, replacing Natan Levy, who did have to pull out a couple, I believe, just about a week or so ago. And Dakota Bush comes in fresh off his LFA victory over Austin Clem. I believe the guy's name is Austin Clem, but that was at the end of at the end of January. So he's been staying relatively active during this COVID era and very dominant in his approach as well. He's 8-2 with a wrestling background, obviously from Missouri State, very high level wrestler from the college scene. And I think it translates pretty well for him over onto the MMA scene here. Obviously, his most recent loss was as a plus 170 dog to Jaleel Willis, where he wasn't really able to get his wrestling going. It seemed like Willis was much too strong for him. And even Willis did miss weight for that fight, as I believe it was a little bit too much for Dakota Bush to handle in that situation. He shows great, takedowns, great wrestling, improving striking. His jiu-jitsu seems very up to par as well, going out there and submitting much of his opponents. But, he is coming in as heavy favorites in his last 2 fights, which is why he was able to disable or pretty much get rid of these guys relatively quickly in that first round. I do like what he brings to the table with his wrestling, and that's always something you guys see me lean on, is if somebody has a solid grappling background and can go out there and show that they can go decently for 3 rounds and have good enough cardio to implement that type of game, then more often than not, I do back these guys. Plus 145 seems to be a decent line here, and also that line is starting to rise. That line is starting to get bigger, and I'm expecting that to be good because Austin Hubbard is the UFC vet taking on the short notice newcomer here. So it was good for, but I still think that this is a good spot for Dakota Bush to go out there and pull off the upset. Now, Austin Hubbard has a really rough time since coming to the UFC, I believe on short notice against Davey Hamos, where he came in as a plus 425 underdog. And yeah, he just couldn't get it going. They just keep putting him up against these high-level grappling guys. And here's another one in Dakota Bush, who only is making his UFC debut here, but does have a credential wrestling background. So Davey Hamos, high-level black belt, not really getting his wrestling game going, but was still able to outland Austin Hubbard on the feet and do some good work up there. Then he gets thrown. What's it called? Fuck. Kyle Prepelic in a striker versus striker matchup. He obviously showcases that he's the better striker in that spot. So he goes out there and wins that fight. Marco Madsen, an Olympic level wrestler, couldn't really get his game going against him, as Madsen was very successful at getting the fight to the ground. And Hubbard did get up a couple times, but he just was always threatened by that takedown threat from Madsen. So Madsen was able to come out on the winning end via decision there. Then that Max Roskopf fight, right? You guys remember that one where Roskopf just didn't want to get off the stool after the second round because he had a complete adrenaline dump in the first 10 minutes, and Austin Hubbard was really starting to take over in that second round. So that's a fight where he's able to win, right? Again, solid grappling advantage for Roskopf, but he didn't have the cardio and the gas tank to go out there and back it up. And then Joe Selecki is like, I'm not going 15 minutes, dog. I'm going to try to take your back as soon as I can and try to tap you out. And that's exactly what he did within 2 minutes of that fight starting. Just hops on the back of Hubbard, not even needing a takedown, and then eventually sinking in that rear naked choke. So good work from Joe Selecki there. Shout out to Joe Selecki, who did catch as our lock of the night play this past weekend. So I think Dakota Bush falls into the category of solid wrestler here, who should have a decent enough striking game to hang with Austin Hubbard on the feet. But I expect this fight to eventually be taken to the ground, and that's where I think that we're going to see Dakota Bush really start to take over. I am just concerned that this is slightly short notice for Bush. You know, he's not coming up a weight class as most guys do who do take the fight on short notice. So he's going to be fighting at 155. He'll be the same height as Austin Hubbard here, have a 2-inch height advantage, which I believe, or reach advantage, which I believe will help him close the distance and get his paws around Austin. And I'm not the biggest believer that Austin Hubbard is going to go out there and knock out our guy Dakota Bush. So I do like Dakota as the underdog. I think he's going to be successful with his wrestling, get this fight down time and time again, and win this fight via control. So, you know, if he had a little bit more legitimacy behind his record, I'd probably look to go out there and actually bet him in this spot. But I will pick him and predict him to win this fight via decision and pull off the upset. All right, let's quickly see what the chat's saying here before we move on to the next fights. Again, I'm not gonna bring light to any comments that are talking about fights that I'm going to be talking about later in the podcast. Only fight comments that are relevant to the matchup at hand here. Blackie Chan, my guy Blackie Chan, saying he's not betting anyone that goes by the name Harry Bush. I understand that, but the guy has a solid wrestling game, and that's all I need to go out there and bet a guy, especially at plus money, right? I expect him to be prepared for this fight, and yeah, to complete those takedowns. William Hagmeister is saying, wait, Natan Levy is out. Yeah, it's been a couple days now, buddy. You got to catch up on the news, my guy, William. Chris Nelson, shout out for the dono here. Appreciate the donation, buddy. Cash on the dog of the night and lock of the night this past weekend. Thanks. No worries, brother. Appreciate you for being on the Patreon, my man. Even dropping some more cash on me. I appreciate it. All the support is much appreciated. More with less is saying, man, they did Hubbard no favors giving a prospect a BJJ world champ and an Olympic wrestling medalist. Exactly. And again, here you're getting a very high level college wrestler in Dakota Bush. They just want to keep giving this guy grapplers. It's fucking crazy. Tajik Bey is saying Dakota is easy money. I think it's a good spot. William is asking what happened with Natan. I'm not exactly sure. Chris Grieve is saying he's got COVID. So yeah, that makes sense here. Old Boy MMA podcast. I believe that's Justin Jr. saying that Hubbard via decision. If he can keep it on the feet, yeah, I think he's a solid spot. Alex Ramirez in the chat. What's going on, my brother? Timothy is saying I'm now betting a guy only because his name is Harry Bush. Jeremy Wallen is saying fight goes to the decision. I think he has a solid shot. I don't think that we'll see Dakota submit Hubbard here, and I'm not sure we'll see Hubbard actually knock out Dakota. So I expect Dakota actually slow this fight down as much as possible and win this fight via decision. The Zarah is saying Bush dog money. I'll ride with you, luck the night first dog pick. Unreal. Yeah, I like it. There are a couple dogs here. Again, I believe I picked about 5 or 6 on my other podcast. So yeah, I'm dog heavy this weekend. William Hagmeister, I told you I took the week off. Okay, makes sense. Belt Better is reminding us that he was scheduled for the last week. Okay, I get it. Dylan Glenn letting us know, I believe Levy said on his Instagram that he has a nagging injury, couldn't train properly, and had to pull out. I got pushed by decision. I like it as well. Nick West in the chat. My guy, Nick West. What's going on, buddy? All right, let's move on to the next fight here. The Zarah. I appreciate that, buddy. I'm trying. Whenever I can find a round 3 spot, I'll let you guys know. Rick Ramon is saying those guys aren't 4-time World Cup winner and BJJ or silver Olympic finals in wrestling. The guys that Hubbard has fought in the past, obviously they're very high level. I don't think that Bush is on that level, but he should. Yeah, you're talking about Bush. Yeah, true. But he still has a very good wrestling background, and I think that would be enough for him to go out there and grind this fight against Hubbard. I love Hubbard. I think he's a very good spot. You know, he's a good fighter. But I think I like the wrestling credentials that Bush brings to the table here, especially as a dog. And I expect the line to get wider as the days go on. So I'm just going to sit back and wait to see what happens with that line before I pull the trigger, if I do pull the trigger at all. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Jessica Penne versus Lupita Godinez. If you guys remember, Jessica Penne was scheduled to fight Anna Goldie a couple times over the last month now. All right, we got a little bit of a chirper here. Hunter M is saying, if you're not going to cover the Dern and McDessie spots in hindsight of the horror takes and only cover the plays you invest on, why not just go over the plays you like, period? I'm here to give you guys my predictions, but then when I'm doing my recaps, it's called a betting recap. Obviously, my spots on Dern and McDessie didn't really play out, but I wasn't invested enough to actually play them. I didn't play Nunes. I didn't play Bahamundes. So just saying, brother. I'm not going to go over every single pick or every single prediction on my recaps. It's just my betting recap. I talk about my losses when I lose my lock of the night play or my dog of the night play. So don't just say that I'm picking my spots in terms of which ones that I'm choosing to go over and which ones I'm choosing not to. Appreciate you checking out the stream, though, buddy. All right, Penne, like we said, she's coming off a relatively long layoff here. She had a bunch of trouble with USADA, obviously staying in and out of, just staying in and out of the training room, but not really getting into the cage and getting her, again, not really getting time in the cage. That's my issue, right? She's coming off a 3-fight losing streak, which is hilarious that 3 fights ago she was fighting for the title against Joanna and Jędrzejczyk. If I'm not mistaken, she was actually the first person that Joanna defended against after she had beaten Carla Esparza for the strap. But again, it's been a long time since we've seen Penne inside the cage. She's taken on I believe, somewhat short notice here in Lupita Godinez, who's only 5-0, and that's my concern here, right? She's 27 years old. She's going to be 11 years younger, and she seems like she needs to round out her game. But everything that I've seen up until this point is that she's a really good striker, and I think that might be enough for her to get the win here over Jessica Penne. Penne will be most successful if she's able to get the fight to the ground. You know, if she's able to secure takedowns and get her jiu-jitsu game going, that's where she's best. But as we saw in the Demopoulos fight, Lupita Godinez is really good in terms of keeping the fight on the feet, and Demopoulos had no success in terms of taking the fight to the ground. So yeah, I do like the fact that Godinez is the much better striker in this spot. She's going to be at a little bit of a slight height and reach disadvantage, right? 3-inch height disadvantage as well as a 4-inch reach disadvantage. So she's really going to have to get in and out without really getting his striking going, right? Like, I think that Godinez shows good enough striking to get in, get her strikes going, and then get out without giving up much takedowns or anything like that. Her fight against Lindsay Garber is very intriguing to me because she comes in. I believe actually those odds are off now that I'm thinking about it, because she should not. I think my graphic is off here. Let me just check one thing, guys. I apologize. Lupita Godinez. Yeah, those odds are off. I apologize. She was the slight favorite to Demopoulos, and then she was the odds on the earlier fights there. One sec. All right, yeah. The Lindsay Garber fight. Let me get back to this. She has a boxing background. She was on the Canadian national boxing team, I believe it is, but ultimately ended her career on like a very bad streak or something like that. But the fact that Garbett was coming into the MMA world with a boxing background, a lot of people didn't want to stand and bang with her. However, Godinez was more than willing to go out there and actually do that. She stood with her for 3 rounds and landed the much better shots. There were opportunities for her to get the takedowns, and she did. But uh but yeah, I was very impressed with what we saw from that fight. Then the Demopoulos fight, another one where she was able to keep the fight on the feet. Again, it would be a similar fight to this Jessica Penne fight, where Demopoulos, her success will come to the back to the jiu-jitsu. That's where Penne would be most successful. But I think that her wrestling game really does struggle, at least from what I've seen in the past. And I believe she's going to struggle to get Godinez down here. So I don't like the chalky line on Godinez. Obviously, don't get me wrong, minus 275 is a little bit too crazy. But I'm not the most keen on thinking that Penne has any value here at plus 235, as I believe she's going to struggle with the power that's going to be coming from Godinez in the striking exchanges. And I think that she's going to struggle with trying to get this fight to the ground. So I like Godinez. I'm going to take her to win this fight by decision. But I think that line is a little bit too wide considering the amount of experience that Penne has against very high level opponents. Whereas Lupita Godinez, like we see her last 5 fights right there. Right. So yeah, I like Godinez. She seems like she could have a bright future. But let's go see her inside the UFC cage before we start making her a minus 300 favorite here. All right, let's see what the chat has to say. The Zarah is saying 4-year layoff of Penne. Yep, for sure. MMA Kappa said El Mexicano Lupita via decision. Yep, I like that too. William Hagmeister is saying, love the new setup with the fighters info on the last 5 on screen. Yeah, this is pretty much the same graphic that I used on my pre-recorded podcast as well. I'm like, I might as well just use it for my live as well. Why not? These are, I do not like Penne. Just want to see if there's any comments that I want to highlight here. Chris Nelson is saying, I bet someone on here is Penne's OnlyFans subscriber. More with less saying too much talk here. Yeah, I agree. William Hagmeister was saying Jessica Andrade was plus money against Penne. No, Andrade was minus 130, so she was the slight favorite. Appreciate the kind words, Belbetta. We don't hide from losses. We talk about our losses. Zachary in the chat saying, what's good, my sir? Appreciate you stopping by. Chris Grieve letting you guys know that Tajik Bey is out here trolling. That's what he does on every chat, and I'm here for it. I don't really mind it. I'm just not going to highlight them, but I appreciate that he's stopping by. SKD is saying, bro, Lachlan and I keeps it more real than most cappers with bet slips and transparency. I'm not saying get the fuck out, but I love that you guys ride with your boy. I really, really appreciate it. Zachary is saying I'm done betting on Tessa fights in the UFC. Yeah, it depends on the fighter coming to the UFC. Like Dakota Bush, I'm okay with betting him at plus 145. 1, considering he's a dog, and 2, he has a very legitimate wrestling background that I've seen in action. So yeah. Jared Garrett is saying you're a real DJ if you bet on this fight. In my opinion, I absolutely agree. William Hagmeister saying this is a go-to-bathroom fight. I see that. Shawnee Mack, again, never misses a live stream. I see you, my man. The Zarah is saying, women's MMA, anything can happen, but Lupita has scary striking. She's short, though, compared to Penne. Yeah, absolutely agree there. All right, let's get to the next fight here. Let's keep the train moving along. We got Zarah Fairn versus Josiane Nunes. And just like you guys are saying, women's MMA, this is another spot where you should consider the underdog. I do like what I see from Zarah Fairn here. Now, even though she has had the most tumultuous run in the UFC, going 0-2 so far, one against Megan Anderson. And yes, I know if you're getting tapped out by Megan Anderson, you probably should never be considered to, lay your money on a woman like that. And then obviously goes out there and gets TKO'd by Felicia Spencer in the last fight. But she did some good things in that Felicia Spencer fight, right? She's kept her distance very well. She landed some good shots from the outside. She was doing a good job of kind of stuffing the takedowns or nullifying the takedown opportunities for Felicia. But then she made one mistake, right? There's an instance where Spencer tries to close the distance. She doesn't get anything successful, but we don't see Zarah have the urgency in terms of getting off the cage and getting away from a bad position. And that's where we see Felicia close that distance, get the takedown, and really start to go to work. But what we see from her on the regional scene is very impressive, right? She does a good job of maintaining her distance, letting her distance striking do the talking, and really has a nice crisp 1-2 down the middle to keep her opponents on the outside. She's very big for the division, right? She's 5'8", 72-inch reach at this 135-pound division. Her prior two fights being at 145 because the UFC just has no 145-pound division. Now let's see what she does at 135. She's had some decent fights on the regional scene where you see her tested, and she does pass with flying colors. But her takedown defense is a little bit of a concern. She seems like a little bit of a fish out of the water when she is on her back, even though she's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So that's kind of my concern here, is if Josiane Nunes decides to take that route. But if you look at the tape on Nunes, you see she's kind of like a brawler, a pit bull style fighter, a scrapper, a spot where, she doesn't have the greatest technique. She's very wild, but she just kind of rampages forward and just throws some crazy strikes. Nothing real clean down the middle. It's all winging, hooking shots, some savage leg kicks, body kicks with not the craziest of technique. And she's just able to just outwork these girls. Not really outwork, but just intimidate these girls, or almost take the Homer Simpson approach in some of her fights, where her opponents start to gas in that second round, and then she starts to put her on them with a barrage of punches, and then she gets them out of there. Her only losses to UFC, strawweight. I believe she's a strawweight, Tyler Santos, and that was her second ever MMA fight, and back in 2013. And then she takes a little bit of time off and joins the same gym as Tyler Santos, and then goes on I believe a 6-0 run in that amount of time. But again, the level of opponents that she's going up against is just not that impressive. A lot of these women are very, are 0-0, 0-1. Her last two fights are against a 3-0 and 4-0 opponent, but it seems like both those women had trouble with their gas tank, and they weren't able to sustain the type of game plan that they were going out there and putting against Nunes. The Barboza girl, she chases takedowns and is successful in those takedowns and has some good work from on top and good damage from on top. But once the fight gets deeper into the second round, she starts to gas a little bit, and we see Nunes kind of just, again, crash forward and land big shots. I think Zarah's live here as an underdog. I think that she can maintain the distance. I think she's the best striker that Nunes has fought up until this point, other than Tyler Santos. And I think that this might look like a bull and matador type of situation. My only concern is if we see Nunes go out there and try to take this fight to the ground and nullify that 6-inch height disadvantage she's going to be at, as well as that 5-inch reach disadvantage she's going to be at. It's going to look almost as comical as Dao Eun-Jung versus William Knight from this past weekend in terms of the stare downs, right? Zarah Fairn is going to have a huge height advantage here, and I think she's going to make use of that entirely by keeping Nunes on the outside, kicking her up the middle, throwing that jab out there. My only concern is the lack of volume at times we see from Zarah Fairn, which is, not the most. She's going to have to stay consistent with throwing her strikes out there to keep Nunes on the end of it. Otherwise, Nunes will close the distance and land some good strikes of her own. Again, either girl could be successful if they took a grappling approach here. Neither showed the greatest, jiu-jitsu off their back. Nunes shows a little bit better job in terms of getting back to her feet, but in terms of submissions or anything like that, we don't really see it from either girl here. So I do lean Zarah here. I think she's a cleaner, crisper striker. Nunes has a little bit of a mean streak about her, which is why she has a ton of KOs on her record. But again, the level of competition is just so piss poor. Zarah has definitely fought the much tougher opponents, even though on the regional scene before coming to the UFC. So I do like Zarah here. I'm going to take her to win by decision, and she's a good dog spot here. And yeah, I definitely do like her to win this fight. Dylan Glenn is saying this one's a shit show. Exactly. This is absolutely a shit show. Jen is saying that reach. Yeah, we got a 5-inch reach advantage, but look at the height, 6 inches. SKD is saying Zarah is a bad matchup for Josiane here. I absolutely agree. My guy Brady in the chat. What's going on, Brady? He's saying, glad I'm not going crazy. I like Fairn too. Going to be way bigger. Yep, I like that. MMA Kappa is saying 0 worth some coins. She's a massive biddy compared to Josiane. Exactly. She's going to have a huge reach and height disadvantage. I can't wait to see the stare downs. William Hegmeister is saying, what a UFC welcome for Zarah. Give me the dog in this one. Yep, I'm right there with you. More with less is saying the over is undervalued. Odds makers think Nunes is some crazy finisher. I haven't actually looked at the over under. Let me take a peek at what that actually is, because my guy might be right here. I think this one will get dragged out. Over 2.5 is minus 150. Fight starts round 3 is minus 240. I think that's a good spot. Yeah, minus 150 for the over is not a bad spot here. Zarah Fairn, even by decision, plus 190. Not a bad spot. Yeah, that's probably going to be one of the props that I give out tomorrow on the prop show. God, I love Tajik Bey. Zach A is saying he's expecting a full Askren Paul breakdown. You're not getting that on my side. I apologize. You're not getting that. Timothy is saying Homer Simpson Gasling, such a great call. Exactly what she did 3 times. Yep, you're right. Wail is saying no way to Nunes lose in 2 weeks. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Dab Father in the chat. What's going on, buddy? Bout Better is saying Zarah is 37. I agree, but when we're talking about such low-level fighters here, I think the one that is slightly better is going to win. And I don't even think she's slightly better. I think she's much better. It's just, is she going to be able to put out enough volume to keep Nunes on the outside? That's my only concern. Vincent Vanderspien is saying 5'2" featherweight. It's actually a bantamweight fight. So Fairn was forced to fight at featherweight the last 2 fights because the UFC has no fucking featherweights. So she's going down to 135 now. And Josiane, yes, she is fighting at 135 here. Zachary's asking who's on the Friday pod this week. We do have a bit of an odds reunion. It's going to be me, Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast, MMA Prediction Guru, and Bleed. Very much looking forward to that one. All right. Let's get into the next fight here. I don't want to spend too long. We're only 3 fights deep, and it's already 8:45. All right, next up, we got Tony Gravely versus Anthony Birchak. Minus 320 on Tony Gravely and plus 260 on Anthony Birchak. I think this is a very difficult fight for Birchak, who's going to have to deal with the wrestling-heavy approach from Tony Gravely, and also Gravely has a very good jiu-jitsu game of his own. Even though he did get submitted by Brett Johns in the 3rd round 2 fights ago, Brett Johns is just another beast. Him and Jack Shore are like one of the same in terms of their approach. Constant pressure, constantly moving forward, constantly pressuring you and just kind of taking you down and overwhelming you. Whereas Tony Gravely, once he's able to work at his speed and get his game going, I truly think that it's going to be trouble for Anthony Birchak. Birchak has a decent jiu-jitsu game, 10th planet black belt himself, but I think he's really going to struggle here with the pressure and pace that Tony Gravely is going to put on him. Birchak, I think, has a decent striking game, but I think that Gravely is a little bit better in that realm. But again, I think this fight is going to be won and lost in the grappling exchanges, and I think that Gravely is going to just be a little bit more ahead of him. I think he's I think he's the stronger fighter in this situation. He'll have a slight a slight height disadvantage in this spot. But I do think that Gravely is the much better wrestler, and I think he's much better from on top than he is from on bottom. And I think that's what's really going to allow him to, again, complete takedowns, overpower Birchak, and then just, control time on top, maybe open up a submission of his own. But I kind of be surprised if we see him get without clubbing subbing Birchak, I'd kind of be surprised if he actually pulls off a submission of his own. So I do like Gravely here. I think he just, again, I think he's a solid parlay piece. Minus 320 is not too bad considering the discrepancy in skill I see here. And I do like Gravely. I think he has a very bright future still. He's 29 years old. He's inching closer to his prime. I think if he does sharpen up a couple more things in his toolbox, he should be able to reach that top 15. That win against Geraldo de Freitas was a little bit close, but I do think he deserved to get his hand raised that night. But I think stylistically, this is a great fight for him. It's kind of weird for me that Birchak is back in the UFC, as I don't think he's a UFC level guy, but he does have the experience in going up against, other opponents that are high level guys. Seeing him lose as a minus 475 favorite to Hoon Moon pretty much should tell you everything that you need to know. But yeah, I like Gravely here to outgrind him, push him up against the cage, land takedowns, and stay out of the submissions from this spot. All right, let's see what the chat's saying so we can keep moving on. Wael was asking if Fairn is going down a weight. Yeah, I believe she is normally a 135, but went up to 145. Stacking your chips up. No, I will be reading Twitter messages as well, but I do appreciate if you do hop on over to the YouTubes and watch that version and stay connected with the rest of the chat here. Jeremy Wallen is saying, when you and Brady running it live together again? A lot sooner than you guys are expecting. Let's just put it that way. Really looking forward to working with my guy Brady, but we'll see in the very near future what the hell is up. MMA Kappa is saying young Tony Gravely to the grave. I absolutely agree. MMA Kappa is saying who would win a grappling contest out of all of the odds guys. I think Clint actually has a grappling background. Like I think he actually wrestled in high school or some shit. So maybe him. I don't know. Zachary is saying Birchak has been grappling on the side too. Yeah, he has. Again, he's a black belt. I believe he owns and runs one of the 10th Planet locations, but I think he's going to struggle here with the power and style of Tony Gravely. Vincent was saying Anthony was a minus 1340 favorite. He was a minus 1340 favorite 2 fights ago. Wael is saying, I hate putting money on anyone 34 or older for some reason. It depends on the fighter, right? Sarich is saying Birchak has significantly better BJJ. I think his wrestling is good enough to hold him off. I don't believe in his wrestling, to be honest. But yeah, I do think he has the better BJJ here. I just don't know if he'll actually pull it off. Luke Fulton is saying Gravely Cortez parlay is a play for this card. Interesting. Not saying I don't agree with that. Mike Lowry is asking, will I be doing Bellator? I'm hoping to drop the pre-record podcast for that by either Wednesday night or Thursday AM. So be on the lookout for that. I probably won't be doing a live stream for like I did last week. So look for it on my channel. Sarge is saying thoughts on stand-up, Birchak stand-up versus Gravely. I think Gravely is slightly better in the striking realm, not by a wide margin or anything like that. But I do think that he needs to get his wrestling going to be effective in this fight. If this is a striking matchup for 15 minutes, I'd be biting my nails if I had a Tony Gravely ticket. But, I think that Birchak could make it a little bit interesting on the feet if that's where it stays. But I do think that Gravely will have the success in getting this fight to the ground. Yeah. Sarge is saying Birchak might throw crispy. Again, that is my concern here. I think Gravely has that wrestling style of striking, which is like, wide looping shots, but it's effective enough for him to actually get the fight to the ground. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Juan Espino versus Alexander Romanov, easily the fight that I'm looking forward to most this weekend, just like I was looking forward to Arnold Allen against Sadiq Youssef. It wasn't a crazy barn burner, the Youssef and Allen fight, but it was a very tactical and chess matches type of fight. And I expect the same thing here, right? I mean, it might not be the prettiest fight, but we're going to find out a lot about both of the guys here. Initially, I'm trying to like when this fight was announced, I'm like, okay, whoever is the underdog in the spot is probably the way to go with, right? You're probably getting value on the underdog here. This fight probably should be a pick'em spot. Then you start to run the tape, and then you're just like, okay, Juan Espino, credentially probably the better technical wrestler in the spot, but what I've seen from him and how he might react against a guy like Alexander Romanov gives me a lot of questions, which is why I'm ultimately going to be siding on the Romanov side here. We only have a couple fights of footage on Espino, right? I tweeted it out. We saw that Espino fight against whoop, I apologize. I just want to make sure I keep my spot in the comments here so I don't miss anything. The Juan Espino against Vitaly Minakov gets knocked out in 9 seconds, but that's you don't see Espino at his best in that fight, right? He's 310 pounds. He's a huge guy at that spot, and he probably didn't even think he had a future in MMA at that point. Goes up against fucking Vitaly Minakov, high level heavyweight, who was a former Bellator heavyweight champion. Did a lot of good things for M1 and Fight Nights Global. So yeah, very tough matchup for him there. And that's the only blemish that he has on his record. The only other fights that we have tape on him for, at least that I have tape on him for, is his Ultimate Fighter run, where he goes out there and beats Ben Sassoli, he beats Maurice Green, then he gets to the finale and beats Justin Frazier, and then goes out there and scarf holds Jeff Hughes. But there are certain things in those fights other than the Ben Sassoli fight, which he was able to control relatively easy over 10 minutes. But the other fights, he showed some issues in terms of holding these guys down. Ultimately, he gets these guys down and finishes them via submission or something like that. But I feel like he's going to have trouble doing that to Alexander Romanov here, who's going to be the much more agile, much more energetic, and much faster guy here. It's weird to me initially that I was expecting Romanov to be the bigger guy, but you got Espino coming in with a 1 inch height advantage as well as a 5 inch reach advantage. But you're gonna have to ultimately give the strength here to Romanov, who is able to just fucking pull off these German suplexes and these belly to back suplexes, absolutely crazy type of power and strength that we see from him. Again, his agility and agileness is such is so impressive to me for a guy the size of, that he is. Weight-wise, these guys are relatively the same size too, right? They've been weighing in around 255, 260, so I don't think that we'll see a tremendous size advantage here for either guy. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, I think that Romanov is going to be the one that's slightly ahead, or at least a step ahead in most of these situations. I think that Espino has a slightly better submission game. If I'm not mistaken, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but Romanov does some really good things on the ground too, in terms of being able to pass guard relatively easily, be very heavy on top, that his opponents aren't really able to get up from under him. De Lima had a really good instance where he was able to get off of him after that first, or get up out from under him after that first takedown that Romanov was successful in getting, but then Romanov eventually gets him down and then puts him to sleep with that beautiful forearm choke. The guy's strong as fuck, man. My another concern here that I have for Romanov is that he's just training from this random gym out of Baltimore. He moved from Moldova to Baltimore, Maryland, and is training sometimes with like college wrestlers. But then in terms of like who he's actually training with that could elevate his game to the next level, there's not really anybody that comes to mind. Juan Espino's out of American Top Team, getting in time with all the guys over there. And I'm sure that they're trying to add more to his game. But in terms of the striking realm here, like I give the slight advantage to Romanov. He seems a little bit more comfortable on the feet. Espino, it seems like all he has is like his feint takedown to an overhand right. Feint the takedown, get the guy to think about the takedown, get his hands to come down, and then come over with the right hand. The only time we saw him truly successful with that was when he landed it cleanly against Maurice Green, had him on wobbly legs, and then eventually took him down after that, and then got the victory down there. But, I wish we saw a little bit more from Espino, especially off of his back. There's no tape, at least that I have available to me, that shows me off of his back, because that's where I expect him to spend the majority of this fight. Romanov, we've seen him taken down against a guy in Sultan Murtazaliev, who, caught a kick or a lazy kick that Romanov threw out there, took him down, but it only was able to spend about 30 to 40 seconds on top of Romanov. Romanov eventually gets belly down, gets back to his feet, and then gets his own takedowns and gets his own game going again. And his cardio didn't look the worst either. He was able to get a third round TKO victory in that fight. And that's the longest that we've seen either guy go, you know what I mean, in terms of tape that we have available to us. If you guys have more footage available on Juan Espino, then send that shit over to me. But all I have is his Minikov fight and then whatever we've been seeing from him in The Ultimate Fighter and his one fight in the UFC, or his two fights in the UFC, I should say. So I do like Romanov here. I think he's going to be the bigger, or sorry, he won't be bigger here. I apologize. He'll be the stronger guy here. He'll be the more agile guy here. He'll be the guy that's going to be able to, you know, transition a little bit easier. And I'd be surprised if you see Espino actually hold him down and even pull off a submission of his own. I think Romanov is going to be a top 5 guy. And I'm doing my best to kind of just reel myself back in terms of being a fan of this guy and talking about it from a betting perspective. But I think that Romanov should be favored here, rightfully so. And I think he's going to get the better shots off on the feet and then eventually parlay that into a takedown. Again, it's not even going to have to be super technical. The guy can just completely overpower him, land some sort of like suplex type of takedown, and then hopefully see what what Espino has off of his back. Historically speaking, wrestlers that are amazing aren't really the greatest off of their back, but Espino is a black belt in BJJ. He is 40 years old, something that we need to worry about, but fight miles is not really up there. He's not really in the cage that often, right? He only has 11 fights under his record and he's 40 years old, whereas Romanov, he's 30 years old and has 13 fights. And we haven't even seen Romanov take that much damage in his fights either. So both guys are pretty good at suppressing the amount of damage that they're taking. But I ultimately will have to side with Romanov here. And I think he's going to win this fight via decision by just grinding out Espino, taking, or maybe not by decision. He could probably actually get a second round TKO, as I believe that Espino will start to break and start to gas out a little bit quicker than we'll see from Romanov. So I'm going Romanov here. I'll take him by second round TKO. I think the over is a decent spot, but I do think it's going to be Romanov overwhelming Espino here en route to a second round TKO victory. So I like Romanov in this spot. Let's see what the chat is saying here. Tristan Surehouse is saying Romanov will work Espino. I absolutely agree. Vincent is saying, damn, Espino's 40. Yeah, he just hasn't fought that often. That's the tough one. Bukaki is saying, God, I love that name. Lucky that I picked the right one. I hope I picked the right one. Search is saying, a joke this isn't on the main card and the fact it's not even in the feature prelim. I agree, man. Shine some light on these guys, man. They're the future of the heavyweight division, even though Espino is, again, 40 years old. That's the issue there. Let's see. Again, I don't want to get through all the comments here, but I will pick up the ones that look solid. Wail is saying Romanov starts his big parlay. I like it. I like it. William Hagmeister is on Romanov. I agree. Belt better saying power versus technique. Yeah, to a certain point. I don't want to say Romanov doesn't have any technique, but he'll definitely have the power advantage here. Danny Lopez is riding the Romanov train till it stops. I don't blame you. Good look by Wail saying his body, Romanov's body kicks are vicious. I agree. Zachary's asking, what's the layoff for Espino? I'm not entirely sure what the layoff was. I'm assuming injuries. SKD is saying, I can't lie, this year is tough. Age is a factor, but not as much as you might think. Yeah. Again, when you're a heavyweight, you can get away with being the older guy. Bukaki is saying Romanov is complete shit, didn't throw a single punch in his last fight, and wins by forearm choke. How does that make him complete shit, though? AG saying both these guys are both my guys. Actually mad they're facing off, but looking forward to this fight the most this week. I agree. I wish they didn't have to match each other up. I wanted to see them build themselves up a little bit more. William Hagmeister saying, what's the over? Yeah, it is 1.5. Bukaki is saying, did you see Romanov's fights and egos? He's powerful as fuck, but has no striking technique. I can see him gassing and Espino winning on the feet, technique over power all day. I don't think Espino has the greatest on the feet either. I'm not sure where people are getting that narrative that he's like a great striker of his own. He looks stiff and tough on the feet. Not saying that Romanov looks like fucking Adesanya on the feet or anything, but I feel like he's a little bit more comfortable throwing his spinning, flying shit, and then setting up the takedowns, which ultimately is what he needs to get his victories. Some Solutions got Espino. Vincent is saying, I think the difference will be athleticism. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. CH15 is saying, what's up? I appreciate you stopping by, buddy. Blackie Chan saying he's already put his house on Espino. God damn. Apparently you have at least 4 or 5 other houses, so you're good even if you lose this one. Daniel's asking who's got the better gas tank. I gotta lean Romanov here, but there's just not enough tape on Espino, right? The only time we've seen him go 10 minutes was against Ben Sisoli, and it looked decent. Kind of surprised he wasn't able to finish Ben Sisoli, but it seemed like he was slowing down. Whereas Romanov, I've seen him finish a guy in the 3rd round. Yeah, Chris Grieve is on the money here. This matchup doesn't really make sense. You think they would try to push 2 our prospects to not match them up. I agree. Again, heavyweight, the guys, the old guard is slowly phasing out, right? They cut over him. They cut fucking, I think they cut over him. They cut Junior Dos Santos, right? Vincent, he's no Cindy Dadwa. Yeah, thank you. I should have said that. Peter Cirillo is saying, I have serious gambling issues. Well, call 1-800-GAMBLERS Anonymous, wherever the fuck it is. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. I think we've pretty much gotten all the meat off the bone there. Next up, we got Justine Kish versus Tracy Cortez. Minus 255 on Cortez, plus 215 on Justine Kish. And the interesting aspect of this fight is the fact that we haven't seen Justine Kish fight anybody with a grapple-heavy approach other than her fight against, or at least for 3 fights now. You got, Felice Herrig, who, decent striker, but is able to overpower her opponents, which is kind of the approach that she took also against Alexa Grasso, which is why she was able to get the victory there. But here against Justine Kish, she did the same thing and was able to accrue over 9.5 minutes of control time in that fight. But since then, we've seen Justine Kish go out there and fight Ji-Yoon Kim, striker, didn't attempt to take down. Lucy Portalova, striker, didn't attempt to take down. Sabina Mazo, striker, didn't attempt to take down. But then, Kish is, able to remain competitive on the feet. The Sabina Mazo fight was very much a headache for me because I did have money on Justine Kish there as a plus 180 underdog, and she was like seconds away from winning that fight. Unfortunately, she runs into the head kick of Sabina Mazo and then eventually gets choked out. But the way she won that fight was just pace, pressure, staying in the face of Sabina Mazo, not letting her get comfortable enough, kind of similar to how Alexis Davis did it. But Davis did it with the grappling approach, whereas Justine Kish was just trying to get her hands going. Tracy Cortez, on the other hand, she's pretty much been grappling for the majority of her life. You know what I mean? She's 27 years old. She's 8-1. Her only loss came in her first MMA fight where she was doing a lot of good damage, beat her opponent up pretty bad, and then ultimately got caught in a guillotine choke. But since then has, gone undefeated. She's gone 8-0 in her last 8 fights. And showing very good things in those fights. Obviously, her main approach is going to be grappling here. Take this fight to the ground and just try to just pummel Kish's head through the mat. Now, I think it's going to look similar to the Felice Herrig fight where Tracy Cortez will be the stronger woman here. I think she'll be able to get the takedown with relative ease. And then Justine Kish just powers out of the takedowns or trying to get off of her back. Could she have made improvements? Maybe, but I think that she's going to struggle here with the grappling advantage that Tracy Cortez will have. And that's why I truly believe that Cortez should be able to grind this fight out and win via decision. Another interesting aspect of this fight is the Vanessa Melo and Stephanie Egger fights for Tracy Cortez. Now, I know that Melo and Egger aren't the greatest opponents, but that was up at 135 pounds and much stronger opponents than Justine Kish. Specifically, Stephanie Egger who has a judoka background, Olympic judoka background, God, I can't even speak, Olympic judoka background. And we saw Cortez handle those clinch situations very well. Anytime we saw Edgar go for a takedown, Tracy either stuffed it or rolled through well enough to at least take the back or get dominant position out of those grappling transitions. And she shows great things, man. Training at a fight ready. Santino DeFranco, very high level coach himself, who's going to have her ready in a fight like this against Justine Kish, who, mainly striker, good Muay Thai, but she doesn't have enough pop or sting on her shots that are making me going to think that she's going to be able to keep Tracy Cortez on the edge of her punches. Cortez will have a 1-inch reach advantage, but height-wise, they're pretty much the same here. And I think that Cortez will close the distance with relative ease, and we've seen her strength pay off for her in the past, and I think that's what's going to do it for her here against Kish. Again, her wrestling technique is great too, which is why she should control Kish up against the cage or even drag this fight to the ground when she needs to. And then Kish's lack of technical ability to get back to her feet will keep her from, getting back to her feet against Tracy Cortez here, who has a very solid top pressure game. Now, Cortez isn't a crazy finisher either, right? Most of her wins have come via decision because she does a good job of being a position over submission type of girl. Whereas, let me secure this position, whether it's dominant or half guard, side control, whatever the fuck it is. Let me secure you on the ground and get some pitter-patter shots off, stay active enough that the referee's not going to stand us up. And that's why she's going to win this fight, because Kish, if you guys remember the Ashley Yoder fight, Kish was able to get her reversals off and get back to her feet when Yoder was going for takedowns and not really settling on top and not really having a solid top pressure game. That's where she truly stumbled and truly got her, where Ashley Yoder wasn't able to get the victory. With that said, Yoder had a solid argument for actually winning that fight via decision. A lot of Justine Kish's fights have been close fights. But I think that Cortez is, the hot prospect here, and she's deservedly so. Minus 250 favorite here, probably gonna end up start looking like a minus 300, minus 400 in the spot. So the fact that Justine Kish doesn't really have the greatest power in her strikes leads me to believe that Cortez will close the distance with relative ease here and land those takedowns, get this fight to the ground, and go en route to a decision victory. So I do like Tracy Cortez to win this fight via decision. All right, let's see what the chat is saying. If you guys have anything to say about this, seems like you guys are still talking about the Romanov fight, and I don't blame you. It's a great fucking fight. JB is saying Tracy Cortez this weekend. Yeah, she looks good. Some solution. Kish was the one that pooped in the octagon. Yes, she was. She'll unfortunately never live that one down, and I feel bad for her. More or less is saying he's landed 100 low leg kicks against Mazo, but seems like she's physically incapable of doing much damage. Exactly. That's my main point here, is the fact that she doesn't give you much to respect her by. Yeah, I mean, she might land a bunch of low kicks here, but Mazo wasn't going to look to grapple her. Mazo was trying to get her striking off. And luckily for her, with the less than a minute left, she was able to get that head kick off and follow up with the submission. But Cortez is going to be chasing that. Noah's saying, how can you pick Kish? Yeah, exactly. Cortez is heavier in grappling. Definitely. God. MMA Mado is saying, women's MMA is like picking the winner between two strangers in the street. Not really. They have plenty of tape on both of them. Rick Ramon is saying Kish was piecing a Mazo the whole fight. Yeah, I know. Again, I had money on Kish that night, but it wasn't anything. Again, Mazo wasn't going to be looking to take her down. She didn't even attempt a takedown in that fight. That's the difference here. TJ Killer is saying she has a judo background. The only thing better than that is Aikido. I mean, in those grappling in those clinch situations, you expect a judoka to have solid hips and solid ability to impose their own trips and throws and all that stuff. And Cortez shut that shit down. Mr. Always 420 hot prospect. You know what the fuck I mean. AG is saying Instamoto by decision. I'm right there with you. Threadhead Media, my guy Rory, saying, just letting you know I'm in here, going to share the stream for support. Keep killing it, brother. I appreciate it, buddy. It means a lot. Wongy77, what's up, Log? Sorry, I'm late, ready for these breakdowns. We're already halfway through it, buddy. Tim Triano is saying my dong wants to bet this one. I get it. William Hagmeister seems like a gift for Cortez from the UFC. I agree. Manuel Galarza is saying, in my opinion, Blanchfield beat Cortez in 2019. I want to be surprised if Kish gives her problems too. I just don't feel comfortable backing Cortez. Blanchfield has a completely different game than Cortez, though, right? Blanchfield is a high-level jiu-jitsu player. Kish doesn't really cut it on the ground much. JB saying, I hope she's going to poop on. I hope she's not going to poop on Tracy. I hope not either. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one here. All right, next up, we got Gerald Meerschaert going against Bartosz Fabinski. Seems like we got a lot of grapple-heavy fights coming up this weekend, and this one is no different. Bartosz Fabinski, we obviously know, likes to just wrestle, right? He wants to take his opponents down, impose his will from on top, land some good enough shots from on top, keep advancing positions, but just lay on top of you pretty much. That's all Bartosz Fabinski does. I'm a fan of that style, right? Especially when you got money on a guy like that. You want to be backing a guy with that type of style. It's funny because I'm trying to remember which fight it was, but Brian Stein was talking about interviewing Bartosz before one of their fights and saying, oh, you know, I've heard that Brian was saying this to Bartosz, saying that I've heard that you've been working on your hands inside the gym, trying to really level up that aspect of your game. And then Brian's like, are we gonna see you showcase that this week against whoever the fuck you're facing? Bartosz is just deadpan. No, I'm going to wrestle this guy. I'm going to take him down. Why would I not play to my advantage, which is going to be the grappling? And that's exactly what I did. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Emil Mech fight. But that's his game, man. But my concern here against GM3, who's a black belt in BJJ himself, solid jiu-jitsu player. We've seen him pull off third round submission victories in the past. A good chunk of his victories have come via submission. And he's a very crafty BJJ guy. Anytime Bartosz Fabinski fights somebody with a relatively good ground game or a black belt in jiu-jitsu, whatever he's getting tapped. He falls into the guillotine choke of Michel Prazeres because he's shooting desperation takedowns. He falls into the, it was like an arm triangle, or sorry, an arm triangle with a triangle choke with the armbar that he fell into with Andrei Nunes, and that ultimately cost him that fight as well. These are all fights that he's pretty much going into as a favorite in, besides that Prazeres fight, and getting tapped out, right? Like Gerald Meerschaert brings that same thing to the table here, which is a solid jiu-jitsu background. So if Bartosz wants to take him down, he's going to have to be sure that he doesn't leave his neck on a silver platter like he did for Michel Prazeres, and two, that he's, skin to skin, body to body against Meerschaert on the ground, so that Meerschaert doesn't have the space that he needs to get his jiu-jitsu game going. But it's hard for me to back Fabinski against anybody that has a solid jiu-jitsu game, and that's exactly what I think that Meerschaert has here. Meerschaert obviously not on the best of runs as of late, as he's been knocked out in his last two fights against Ian Heinisch and Khamzat Chimaev. But Bartosz Fabinski is not going to be looking to strike here. I think Gerald Meerschaert is going to be trying to throw some strikes to get Bartosz, or to go to Bartosz into that takedown, which I expect to come within the first 20 or 30 seconds of this fight. And I think he's going to be ready to try to latch on a guillotine of some sort. But if you're telling me that this fight is primarily going to take place on the ground for 15 minutes against Bartosz Fabinski, who, tends to slow down, later fights go, against a guy in Gerald Meerschaert who can still go in the third round and pull off submission victories, I'm going to go with the guy that has jiu-jitsu and can actually, take advantage of the mistakes that Bartosz will ultimately make. Like, look at the wins that Bartosz has in his most recent, like in his last 5 fights. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, but grapple fucks Hector Urbina to death. Urbina has nothing off of his back. Emil Mech, who's been grapple fucked by pretty much everybody in the UFC up until this point. And then Darren Stewart, mainly a striker. Have no idea why Darren Stewart was a -330 favorite going into that fight. And I'm so pissed at myself. I believe that was actually right before COVID hit. That was that Cage Warriors fight where they actually let Bartosz and Stewart fight on that card. And yeah, Fabinski plus 270 underdog. absolute gift of a line, considering the approach of both of these guys. And Fabinski has had some solid durability. It's just his submission game that seems to fall short, and that's where I think that Gerald Meerschaert will thrive here. So I like GM3 here. I think he's a solid underdog spot, and even GM3 via submission. Let me see what that prop is looking like, because that's obviously his best path to victory. GM3 via submission plus 225. I think that's a solid spot. So yeah, I like Gerald Meerschaert here to win by decision, with Fabinski ultimately falling into that that submission. I do want to address this. Daddy Craig is saying, you guys know Kish was up on scorecards before getting KO'd by Mazo. Also, most people on MMA decisions had her beating Kim. Kish leg kick super underrated, but that could keep Cortez from getting takedowns. I think, if anything, the leg kicks are going to help Cortez get the takedowns. She's going to capitalize on one of those leg kicks, get the takedown. Again, Mazo, mainly a striker. When she gets crowded, she does not work well, just as Alexis Davis showed us in the last fight. So the approach is completely different than what we're going to see from Mazo, than what we're going to be seeing from Cortez. MMA Mato is saying Gerald Meerschaert all day. I'm right there with you, man. I think he's a solid underdog for the spot. Wangi 7, I think Bartosz could get himself in some trouble big time. Yep, I agree. While Eel is saying Poland has been on fire lately. Yeah, they have, and I can't believe I didn't fix that flag for him there. Thankfully, it's not on my pre-recorded podcast yet, so I can fix that. I'm not even going to try to say that, but GM3 biggest can. Yeah, he's not the greatest fighter, but stylistically, with how these fighters match up with each other, I think he could absolutely submit Fabinski here. Vincent is saying got GM3, but don't feel comfortable betting this one. I absolutely get that. Noah Allen is saying Bartosz versus GM3 might come down to cardio. I agree. More with less is saying he couldn't believe GM3 is only 33. I agree. Look at that. He has 45 fucking fights. That's crazy. Tim Triano is saying 75% of Meerschaert's wins by sub, and 75% of Fabinski's losses are by sub. There you go. Noah Allen is saying Bartosz should just make a stand-up fight. The guy has no hands, man. He literally has no hands. Can't believe you guys are talking about poop as much as you guys are. You guys are killing me. Sean O'Brien is saying recent results on the screen are a game changer. Luck, top stuff. Luck. I appreciate it. Again, I've been doing this since January on my pre-recorded podcast. So if you guys haven't been watching the pre-recorded podcast, then this is a bit of a surprise to you. I do have to, sharpen up on a couple of things in terms of some of these things that might be off. But yeah, I appreciate it. J Dog is saying fresh on stuff from Meerschaert, not a bad spot. Manuel Galarza saying Meerschaert will probably get KO'd warming up in the locker room. Dude has absolutely no chin. Bartosz has a few paths to victory, including TKO via ground and pound. Yeah. The only way that I see him winning this fight is on the ground. But he's not a big ground and pounder, right? He's more of a lay-in prayer. Dan is saying if Bartosz gets subbed again, he should retire. Possibly. No Allen. Dropping facts. Leg kicks are bad against grapplers. Absolutely. Hunter M. I had Nunes by sub. I think Fabinski may be a little more safe here, though, so I may pass. Yeah, I wish we had somebody a little bit more reliable than Gerald Meerschaert. Don't get me wrong, but given how these guys match up stylistically, I got to go with the guy that has a solid jiu-jitsu game. TG Kill is saying this is a good matchup for GM3 because Fab not big power puncher, but Nunes BJJ another level than GM3. If he doesn't get sub, he'll spend the fight on his back. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Ian Wind in the chat. Thank you for stopping by, my guy. MMA Mato saying, how's life going since quitting the rat race and making this your main gig? It's been going great. It's just unfortunate that we've been having like back-to-back Bellator and UFC weekends. So I'm still a little bit behind schedule given all the content that I normally put out for you guys. But I think this is the last weekend of Bellator. And then until May 7th is their next event, then May 21st and June 11th. So after this week, I should fully be caught up, and my Patreon members should finally start getting breakdowns for future cards rather than just for the fight that's this coming weekend. So I'm really looking forward to getting ahead of the curb in terms of getting the tape study done. But yeah, it's been great. Glad that I don't have to worry about clocking in 9 to 5, whatever, all that shit. So it's a very, very solid. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Andrei Arlovski versus Chase Sherman, plus 120 on Sherman, minus 140 on Arlovski. Seems like a ton of money has been coming in on Chase Sherman, which is why he's down to plus 120 now. Or he's plus 105 now. So I got to update my graphic there. But yeah, plus 105 for Chase Sherman, minus 125 for Andrei Arlovski. Now, the big question mark here is for Chase Sherman. What is he going to look like coming off that sauce, right? The reason he's been out, he popped for some sort of steroid after the Ike Villanueva fight. Weird that Ike that fight that didn't even get changed to a no contest, right? Normally when fighters pop for something, the last fight changes to a no contest, but luckily for, or at least according to Tapology, that fight is still a win for Chase Sherman. With that said, I cut him a little bit of a slack, right? Like he came into that Ike fight on relatively short notice, off the regional scene, taking God knows who, what, right? He was also fighting Bare Knuckle FC. So maybe he just didn't have enough time to get off whatever the fuck he was on. So I cut him a little bit of slack in that aspect. Now, I like what we've been seeing him from on the regional scene, which is that calf kicking game. That's exactly what he implemented against Ike Villanueva early in their fight, which is why he was able to get his hands going and get him out of there. And that's what I'm concerned here about Arlovski, right? Like, how is Arlovski going to deal with those calf kicks? Now, some people were actually leaning on the Bozer fight in terms of a good fight to look back on in terms of preparation for this fight. And I understand that, but Bozer's more of just a leg kicker. Like, he doesn't seek the calf as much as Chase Sherman has been seeking the calf in his last several fights, and that's the main difference in this spot. Again, Chase Sherman is a guy that's kind of been the butt of the joke a lot in the MMA betting game, but I think stylistically he matches up pretty well here against Andrei Arlovski. Arlovski's been throwing well with his hands, good combinations, springing upsets against guys he shouldn't be losing to, right? Philippe Lins, Tanner Boser, coming in as significant underdogs in both of those fights and losing those fights. Tom Aspinall fight, makes a good account of himself in that first round, but then gets stopped pretty early in that second round via submission. I believe it was one of his first submission losses in a long, long time, if not his only submission loss on his record. But I expect this fight to be primarily played out on the feet. Kind of surprised that Chase Sherman is going to be the slightly bigger fighter in this spot, given how big Andrei Arlovski is big himself. But again, I think this comes down to the calf kicking game of Chase Sherman. If he can get that going, I think he's going to cripple Andrei and really start getting his hands going. But it's just, what does he look like off the sauce? Did he have that much of an advantage on steroids or whatever the fuck he got caught for, which is why he's been looking so good as of late? Or is it truly because that is, his striking game is good, his calf kicking game is good, which allows him the rest of his striking game to come together? So I do lean Sherman here just for that simple fact. Arlovski might have the output advantage here. He might have the combination advantage here, if you want to call it that. But I just like what we've been seeing from Chase as of late. And it's like Chase Sherman 2.0. I just love the approach that he had in the Ike fight and even in his regional fight, or his regional fights between his UFC stints. But again, Andrei Arlovski is a far cry from fucking Tate and Jeremy May and whatever, fucking R. Jackson and Ike Villanueva. So this is a massive step up in competition. But I still got to lean Chase here because I think that calf kicking game is just going to give Arlovski too much trouble here. So I do like Chase Sherman, maybe by TKO or maybe by decision. I think if the calf kicking game truly does catch up to him that quickly, I do like Chase here. But I'm just not the most convicted, giving the fact that he's coming off a pretty bad use out of suspension. All right. Mitch Fearing is saying, did you put that 4K you won on that parlay on another multi-event parlay? Goddamn, that would be real crazy shit to have 7-fight 3.8 parlay going for like 100 grand or some shit. I made another $150 parlay. I'm not going to be too greedy and put 4K on something else. But I put $150 on. I think it was like a 7 or 8 legger. I dropped it on the Patreon. 3 of the legs already hit. We had Jack Shore, Joe Selecki, and Marvin Vittori, and then I have about five more spots left that I got to hit over the next couple cards. But yeah, slow and steady. Can't be too greedy. Greedy. Noah Allen is saying Arlovsky is my pick here. Never thought Sherman was good. Again, that's been kind of the perception on him. But I think he's made the changes that he needs to between his loss to Augusto Sakai, getting cut, and then coming back to the UFC. William Hagmeister, exactly. What Sherman do we get now that he's off the juice? Wangi77 is saying this is a super weird fight for me. Over time, I've just learned to watch and enjoy Arlovsky fights instead of losing money on it. Yeah, it's crazy. He wins fights that he's not supposed to win, and then he loses fights that he's not supposed to lose, at least in certain instances. Capper comparison pick. Shout out to my guy Ranj. He thinks Sherman's time in bare knuckle may have sharpened his striking. Possibly, but like it's his calf kicking game, right? It's not calf kicking dudes in bare knuckle. Some solution going with Warlovsky. I love that approach. Noah Allen is saying Arlovsky is the best gatekeeper in heavyweight. No way he lets Sherman pass. I think it's closer, which is why the line is closing as much as it is. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Chase Sherman go off as the favorite. Tim Triano is saying off the sauce equals stop drinking alcohol, off the juice, stop using steroids. I like using sauce for both. MMA Kappa, he's like in the vet to win year. You'll be hungry off that Aspinall loss. Might even sprinkle via KO, TKO alongside Arlovsky money line. Good luck. I think you should wait to bet on Arlovsky because I think the line is going to continuously get better. So just be careful. MMA locker room in the chat saying what up. Appreciate you stopping by, my guy. Joshua Blora saying I honestly thought Romanov would be minus 200 or more favorite. The fact the line opens so close almost has me spooked. It's a close fight for sure. Hunter M is saying Villanueva is a light heavyweight. What else do you like that you saw? It's just the calf kicking game, man. I think that's going to be a little bit too devastating and very debilitating to a lot of fighters, and that's something that we've seen very good from Chase Sherman over his last couple fights. Again, level of competition not up to snuff here compared to what he's going to be facing in Arlovsky, but the calf kicking game is a game changer here. William Hagmeister is saying, what's Patreon? Is it an app? It's just a platform, like a subscription service platform where people trust it because it is a very trustworthy site. And it's just somewhere like where it's like paying for a membership somewhere where you get extra access to more content. That's why people really enjoy it. Vincent is saying I would be blacked out drunk if I took a shot every time he mentioned Chase's Kafka. It's the bread and butter of his game. If I didn't mention it, or if you hear a breakdown this weekend, nobody mentions it, then they're not giving it to you honestly. Sean O'Brien is saying Arlovsky won't finish the vanilla gorilla and Chase won't stop coming forward for sure. Ian Wynn is asking if I've talked about Gravely and Birchak. Yeah, just you can rewind on the live stream here, and it was a couple fights ago. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. I believe we have about 4 fights left. Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Jacob Malkoun. We can get through this one relatively quickly. Again, UFC not doing any favors for Malkoun here. Respect to Malkoun for actually taking this fight. I expected to play exactly how the Phil Hawes fight played out. And I was one of those dorks that actually thought that Jacob Malkoun had a chance against Phil Hawes because I've always been low on Phil Hawes. But yeah, I expect this to play out pretty similarly. Again, it's tough to, if you're looking to play Razak Al Hassan here, just take the under 1.5, right? This fight's not going past that over 1.5 if Abdul wins this fight. We've seen Abdul Razak, when he's not able to get that early finish, his his power, his volume, everything starts to dwindle, and then it starts to go more in favor of his opponent. So if this fight does reach the second round, I think Malkoun would be a solid a live betting spot, but I don't expect it to get there. I think Al Hassan's going to just crash forward, land his big shots, and I think that Malkoun's going to go down like a sack of potatoes. Again, I'm very embarrassed that I picked Malkoun against Phil Hawes here, but that should just let you guys know how low on Phil Hawes I am. Jacob Malkoun, apparently a high-level BJJ guy, but we haven't really gotten to see much of it. Even on his regional tape, it's not the most impressive. It seemed like he had good durability on the regional scene, but he wasn't fighting power punchers like Phil Hawes and Razak Al Hassan, so I think that's where the difference is. But you guys already know me. I'm transparent as fuck, so I'm not as shy to let you guys know that I had taken a little bit of a sprinkle on Malkoun last time. But I think Razak's power is going to be too much for him. I think we're going to see a vintage Al Hassan type of performance where he's just going to crash forward, land the big shots, and put Malkoun out. So I like Al Hassan here to get the KO victory. Again, no need to break this down much further than that. It's just if Al Hassan gets out of the second round or out of the first round, things get very, very iffy. So if you're looking to bet Al Hassan here, either take the fight one start round 2 or take the under 1.5, or even take Al Hassan via KO. Those are the best spots that you're going to get here. So shout out to Malkoun for taking this fight again, but I expect it to pretty much be the same thing. Blackie Chan is saying Abdullah parlay piece for sure. Just take parlay the under 1.5. You're getting a much better line there. That's what I think I'm going to do moving forward. Paiva lies saying easiest pick Abdul by KO. Could happen. Kung Dao Chicken is saying Abdul hasn't been the same since legal issues. Well, the Lazez fight was a tough one for him, right? He wasn't able to get the KO in that first, and then Lazez was able to withstand whatever Razak was throwing at him in that first round, survived, and then he just went away with it in the second and third round. But that's how Razak loses, other than when Chaos stiffed him in 30 seconds. This is another toss-up fight or an easy layup fight for him, I think. Sex God is saying if this reaches second round, I'd laugh my ass off. Exactly. I bet anybody that has that minus 300 on Al Hassan at that point is going to be like, fuck. Yeah, JB was saying Chaos killed that guy till he was dead. Yeah, that was a bad knockout. Danny Lopez, good point. Al Hassan has had bad weight issues and it correlates a bit with his last performances. With that said, Al Hassan is actually coming up in weight here now. He's actually at 185. So I believe it's either the UFC nudging him in that direction and being like, hey, you can't be missing 3 fights in a row. You can't be missing weight. So go up in weight, prove yourself up there, and then maybe we'll let you get back down to 170. So yeah, Al Hassan going up in weight. This is something that not a lot of people are talking about, but I don't think it's going to matter here. I still think that he goes out there and starts his Jacob Malkoun relatively quickly. Blackie Chan is saying, just put my condo on the under. Oh, God. God, I love you, Blackie. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algeo. Great fight here, but kind of surprised at the amount of love that Bill Algeo is getting. Right, a lot of people are thinking that that Ricardo Ramos is just damaged goods now. He was this hot prospect. All of his last 5 fights comes in as a pretty solid favorite, right? Minus 275 against Kang, minus 170 against Saeed Nurmagomedov, minus 380 against short notice Journey Newson, minus 430 against Garagori, and even minus 185 against Lerone Murphy. I still think that Ramos has a bright future, man. The kid's 25 years old. Let's cut him some slack. Why is he not a bigger favorite in this fight? You know what I mean? And the line is actually starting to move into Bill Algeo's realm, which is even more surprising to me. We're getting Ricardo Ramos around that plus 105 range, plus 108 at Sportbet if you guys have Sportbet too. But I think he's a cleaner, crisper striker. I think he has a better jiu-jitsu game. And I don't think that Bill Algeo has this crazy knockout power that he's going to be able to replicate what Nurmagomedov and Lerone Murphy did. I don't see it. I think Ramos, again, he'll be able to outstrike him on the feet, land the better shots, great leg kicks, which I think will slow down Bill Algeo and kind of the way that he moves and kind of approaches his fights. But I think he's really going to struggle here to get his own game going off against Ricardo Ramos, who's just much cleaner and crisper in pretty much all facets of the MMA game. Why the fuck is Bill Algeo the favorite here? And why is he widening as a favorite? Is it because the recency bias on the Spike Carlisle fight? Yeah, Carlisle is kind of like the Abdul Razak Al Hassan, where he's like, if he's not able to get that KO in that first round, he's gonna, start to taper off later in the fight, and that's where Bill Algeo was really able to thrive. He sustained the first power, endured that the first round of the Spike Carlisle, and then he started to really pull away in that second and third round with his distance striking, staying on the outside, kicking him up the middle, and keeping him at distance, and that's where he got his game going. But is he really going to do that here against Ricardo Ramos? Me thinks not. So I do like Ramos here. I think he wins this fight via decision, but even this fight does somehow get dragged to the ground. I think Ramos has the ability to get this to the ground if he wants to. We've seen Bill Algeo tapped out twice in his MMA career, and I think Ramos is very live in doing the exact same. So I do like Ramos here. I'll ultimately take him to win this fight by decision, but this line is mystifying me. What am I missing? I don't know what I'm missing here, but I think that Ramos should be favored in this spot. I think he should be closer to -150, -160, and I still do think he has a bright future. Cut the guy some slack. He's 25 years old. And again, I don't think that Algeo has that knockout power to put Ricardo Ramos' lights out. So I do like Ramos here. I think he's going to outstrike Algeo en route to a decision victory. MMA Kappa saying Billy G via TKO. I don't know. I don't see it. Tristan Sherhouse is saying, I fade Ramos. Usually he would have got wrecked by Tuhugov had they fought, possibly. Brandon Grissom is saying, Locke, you got the beard game on point. You're using beard oil. You damn right. You think I keep this nice and slick? Hold on, let me get that full screen here. I think I keep this beard nice and slick without any beard oil? You are mistaken, my friend. Ooh, I didn't even think about going this way. Damn, I wish I was able to make my screen slightly smaller, but not this small, because you guys can't read that for shit. Can you guys read that? I don't think you guys can read that. Yeah, you guys can actually read that a little bit. If this frame is a little bit too much for you guys, do let me know, and I'll definitely change it for y'all. All right, let's move on to the rest of the chat here. Let's see what you guys are saying. Bruce Jackson says that Locke stays drippy. I try. Some solution is saying, reminded of Tony Ferguson. Interesting. I don't get that comparison, to be honest. Bruce Jackson is saying, I'm missing the Algeo height advantage. I don't think that's going to come like too much in play here. I think Ricardo Ramos' kicking game might nullify that. Vince is saying, I'm praying that my battery survives to the end of the stream. I'll try to speed it up a little bit more for you. John Golan is saying he's seeing how much at +105 at certain places. Yeah, I like it. JB is saying that beard is hurting my eyes because it's so shiny. Let that shit glisten, baby. Okay, you guys can't see. All right, I'll go back. I apologize. There you go. More with less. Algeo is an example of how far you can go with the good shit and good cardio. I agree. Yeah, he's quite durable, and he has decent volume and output, and he has good cardio too. I got you guys. Resumes are hard to read. I got you guys. To Cheek Bay. Obviously, he's saying great view. Don't kill me. Tim Triano is saying how much by points, sweet day, Saturday for dogs, parlays, and a couple dog parlays, plays maybe degenerate life. Yeah, this might not be the card to parlay, to be honest, because I think there are a lot of live dogs. And I think how much is definitely one of them. I've talked about a couple more earlier on the stream, but yeah, I'm definitely liking some dogs here. All right, let's move on to the next fight. I believe this is the third last fight. We got Alex Munoz versus Luis Pena, +125 on Munoz, and -145 on Luis Pena. I am leaning on the dog spot here too. I'm not a big fan of the fact that Luis Pena only has a 47% takedown defense rate. Pretty much all of his opponents have been able to get him down. And that's not a really good look for a guy going up against a guy like Alex Munoz, who's a very solid wrestler of his own. Apparently, Alex Munoz was one of the head wrestling guys down at Team Takedown. If you guys remember Team Takedown from Texas, that was the team that Johnny Hendricks was a part of, and they had some weird business scheme where they're like, fighters are not entitled to their entire purse. They had to disperse it amongst the group themselves. And then Alex Munoz, once Team Takedown split up, Munoz was like, peace out. And he went over to Team Alpha Male, and Team Alpha Male made him their head wrestling coach. And that's got to tell you something, right? The guy's a D1 level wrestler, so he must have some good wrestling in his back pocket. Now, we didn't see much of it in this Troy Lamson fight, and that's another fight where he was going up against another solid wrestler himself. That fight mainly played on the feet, and we saw Munoz land some really good shots on the feet. It seems like his striking is starting to make improvements, but he's 31 years old. How much more improved can he truly get? I think the longer that this fight plays out on the feet, it does favor Luis Pena, as I think he's the much better striker. He's a little bit more diverse on the feet, a little bit more dangerous on the feet, but I think his inability to stop takedowns is going to cause him trouble here. I'd be surprised if we see Munoz go out there and try to, make this like a Troy Lamson fight where he just strikes with them for 15 minutes, because I think he's going to get torched there. And you guys got to cut him a little bit of slack in that Nasrat Haqparast fight, where Haqparast, outside of that one takedown that he gave up in the beginning of the fight, very good takedown defense, and obviously the much better striking game, and it really lit up Alex Munoz. You got to cut Munoz a little bit more slack for the amount of durability that he showed in that fight, as he was able to go a solid 15 minutes, even with getting lit up by Nasrat Haqparast, which is why I find it harder to believe that Luis Pena will probably put Alex Munoz away on the feet. But if Munoz doesn't go out there and wrestle for his life for the majority of these 15 minutes, I think he's going to lose the fight. But I think he'll be successful with the takedowns. I think he'll be able to put Luis Pena on his butt. Pena does seem to have some decent stuff off of his back, very unorthodox with his long, lanky limbs and all that. But I think that if Munoz is able to pass the guard and get to half guard, side control, and eventually full mount, he should be able to give Luis Pena some trouble here and have some good control time. The Nick Newell fight, right? One-armed fighter. He was able to get him down repeatedly and do some good damage from on top. But I wish we saw a little bit more from him. That fight was from a while ago now, right? I'm hoping that we're seeing improvements from Munoz, but I do like him as a slight dog here, as I do think that his wrestling game is going to be a little bit too much for Luis Pena to handle. Again, the poorest takedown defense of Pena is a little bit too much for me to overlook in this spot, especially when he's going up against a high-level D1 wrestler like Alex Munoz. Munoz does still need to make improvements in the striking realm, like I said, and I do think that Pena will touch him up on the feet, but I think he's going to have a hard time maintaining that distance, and I think that we'll see Munoz complete takedowns time and time again and then take home a decision victory. I just need to see more improvements from Munoz to lay serious money on him here, but I am ultimately going to take him to win this fight via decision by, again, landing takedowns and being the more active fighter from on top. All right, let's see what the chat's saying here. Also, one more thing I do want to say is that I think that Luis Pena got that overrated rub right off the bat from the Ultimate Fighter, right? He loses that fight to Mike Trizano, then he eventually loses to Matt Frivola, loses to Kama Worthy. That Kama Worthy loss was very, very unfortunate too. A very, very bad loss from there. But yeah, I do like Munoz to spring the upset here. Noah Allen is saying Munoz I'll probably have a lot on because fuck Luis Pena. Danny Lopez is saying Pena gives me Spike Carlisle vibes. I think Luis Pena brings much more to the table than Spike Carlisle does, but I do think he is overrated. Noah Allen, Luis Pena just outstruck on feet by a guy who's been knocked out 7 times. He's forever overrated. Yeah. Some solution. Only reason why Pena is the favorite is because of his camp. He's actually down at ATT now. He did spend time at AKA, but he's down at ATT for his last couple fights. I'm not sure how much they're truly improving his game, though. That's the issue. Tristan Surehouse, Pena will get WrestleFuck just like Frivola did to him. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, Bob Ross is overrated. I agree. All right. Then let's just keep this trade moving along. It seems like a lot of people are very pretty much on the same side here. All right. Jeremy Stevens against Drakkar Klose. Let me see if the odds have changed, because apparently odds are starting to change as I'm doing my fucking stream here. Drakkar Klose, plus 100 now. His line is starting to close even more. He did open as a plus 125 favorite. Now he's down to plus 100. And we got Jeremy Stevens at minus 120. Now I expect this fight to pretty much play out in the striking realm, right? That's where we're expecting this to go. I don't think that we'll see Drakkar Klose go to his wrestling. I don't think that we'll see Jeremy Stevens go to his wrestling either. So the more that this fight plays out on the feet, you got to favor Jeremy Stevens. Both guys are predominantly, leg kickers, calf kickers. They like targeting that aspect of their opponent, or at least that approach in their attacks, and then getting their hands going after that. But you got to give Jeremy Stephens the advantage when it comes to the striking, right? With his power alone, I think that will cause JaKarr Close a lot of trouble, especially with him getting flatlined the way that he did against Beneil Dariush. Now, there's been a significant amount of time. There's been a significant amount of time since that fight has happened. I believe over a year and 2 months at this point. But that was a bad knockout that he took at the hands of Beneil Dariush. Jeremy Stephens still has knockout power in his hands. Now, his last 5 doesn't look the most intriguing, since all you see is red and that one gray mark with that no contest to Yair Rodriguez. But look at that level of competition, right? You got Jose Aldo, who's doing very well in that fight up until he ate that body shot and crumpled. Zabit Magomedsharipov. Yeah, I mean, a very tough test for pretty much anybody. Yair Rodriguez twice, a fight where in that third round, in the second fight, the momentum was swinging Jeremy Stephens' way, and I'm sure he was wishing and hoping that it was still a 5-rounder, because it probably would have been a W for him had the fight go on any longer. And then the Calvin Kattar fight, that's a fight where he was just pretty much out techniqued on the feet. His leg kicks were paying off for him in that fight. He was landing some very devastating shots in that fight, especially with the leg kicks. But then it was eventually the hands and the striking of Calvin Kattar that caught up to him, where he lands that beautiful step in elbow and then follows up with some beautiful ground and pound to put away Jeremy Stephens. But I lean Jeremy Stephens still here. No, I don't care if he has the most losses in UFC history. The guy is still a very talented fighter. And the fact that he's still only 34 years old blows my mind. How are these guys like fucking Sam Alvey and Gerald Meerschaert only 33 and 34 years old with 40 plus fights? That's fucking insanity. But with that said, I'm still on the Jeremy Stephens side here. Even if he becomes an underdog, I think he's going to be a very solid underdog spot, because I think that his striking is going to set him apart, especially his power will set him apart from JaKarr Close here. I'd be surprised if we don't see JaKarr go for wrestling in this fight, as I'd be surprised to see him willingly go strike for strike, especially in the pocket here against Jeremy Stephens. Historically speaking, we haven't really seen JaKarr go to his wrestling in his last several fights, so I do lean Jeremy here, given that he should have the advantage on the feet. And I'm going to go with Jeremy here. I think he has a possibility of knocking out JaKarr Close, but ultimately I'll go with the decision victory here from Jeremy Stephens from, just outstriking him on the feet, leg kicks, better power on the feet, and then just nullifying the game that JaKarr Close is going to be bringing into the cage that night. While you're listening, I'm not betting this. I'm just going to enjoy it. Yeah, it should be a fun fight. Vincent is saying, how the actual fuck was Jeremy still ranked top 10 at 145 after being 1-4? Yeah, that was weird. That was very weird. More with less. Stephens remarkably still has a good chin and speed despite his long career. Looked really good against Kattar in round 1. Yeah. Again, even though he has been finished twice in his last 5 fights, again, body shot KO by Aldo, and then even the Kattar one, it was surprising that he was still like conscious after the barrage that Kattar put on him in that finishing sequence. So yeah, I still think the guy is very, very durable. And JaKarr Close isn't primarily like a knockout artist, right? He's recorded 0 knockdowns in the UFC. Yeah, he hurt and rocked Beneil Dariush in that fight, but wasn't able to get the finish there. You have to look early in his career to find those knockouts, and it's just not there. Mystic Souza in the chat. What's going on, buddy? It's good to see you here, even though we're pretty much on the co-main event in this spot. Blackie China is saying this fight will probably make me homeless if I bet on it. Yeah, it's a close fight. I agree. It's a close fight. Dan is saying pretty good matchup for Stephens here. You should win this fight if you can get plus money on it. Slam the fuck out of it. I think it will get to plus money considering where this line is starting to head. All right, let's get to the main event now. This is the last fight on the card. Minus 260 for Mr. Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, and then plus 220 on Kelvin Gastelum. Again, this fight was supposed to take place February 2019 at UFC 234. Unfortunately, Robert Whittaker pulls out the morning of the fight, and that's when Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva get pushed up to the main event. But yeah, I still like Robert Whittaker in this spot. I think the line is a little bit wide. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that Robert Whittaker will be the cleaner, crisper striker on the feet here. Whittaker, has that karate type of style where he's like pouncing on his tippy toes pretty much, and then just waiting for his moment to explode and move forward. And whenever he does move forward and blitz forward and throw his shots, he does a really good job of getting his head off the center line and just winging these shots, from weird angles that his opponents don't often see, which is why he was able to plant Darren Till on his butt, which is why he was able to, take Jared Cannonier and rock him the way that he did. That beautiful, like I believe it's a lead hook followed by a head kick. I love that combination. It's the one that he finished Jacare Souza with, and he's had a ton of success with it throughout his career. Kelvin Gastelum, in my opinion, is slightly basic on the feet, right? He has that straight down the middle as well, or sorry, his power hook. I'm trying to remember if it's I believe it's from his left hand because he's a southpaw, and then obviously that jab straight up. But it seems like he's starting to add a little bit more wrinkles to his game. A lot of people are putting too much stock in the Adesanya fight, in my opinion. Everybody keeps referring back to it, be like, oh, Kelvin's still a high level guy. Look at that Adesanya fight; it was 2-2 going into the fifth round. But since then, he's pretty much fell flat. Darren Till did a good job of nullifying Gastelum's power by staying on the outside and pretty much just, waiting for his moments to go in, land his shots, and get back out. And I think that's what Robert Whittaker could be very successful in doing so in this fight. Jack Hermansson, it didn't last that long, but we saw Jack Hermansson's power really come into play there, pulling off that heel hook victory relatively quickly in that fight. Then the Ian Heinisch fight, right? We see glimpses of that greatness that Gastelum brings that a lot of people were very high on earlier on in his career. He's very good at his grappling, very good in scrambles, very good jiu-jitsu, and then he has some decent spots with his striking spot too. But again, Ian Heinisch is a far cry from what Robert Whittaker brings to the table with the striking. Whittaker is very clean and crisp on the feet. He did show, some chin issues, just as he always did in his last several fights, but his chin is holding up, right? It was the Israel Adesanya fight, a very clean, crisp, pinpoint striker that it took to put out Robert Whittaker. He has great awareness. Like in the Jared Cannonier fight, he got rocked with about 45 seconds left in the fight, ties up with Cannonier, slows down the fight, takes the pop off the shots of Cannonier, and survives to win that fight via decision. Can Kelvin Gastelum find the chin? He could absolutely, right? All he has to do is probably just wait for Whittaker to crash forward, and Kelvin Gastelum just, hold steady, stand his ground and throw a counter in return. Kelvin Gastelum's never been finished by strikes, and it's crazy to think, considering all the heavy punches that he's fought throughout his career. The guy's very durable, even in the Adesanya fight, that fifth round, he was getting beat to shit, but he still somehow survived to see that final bell. I do still lean Whittaker here, though. I think that he's going to land the cleaner, better strikes. I think he's going to do well with being in and out. My concern with the approach from Kelvin would be as if Kelvin goes out there and tries to grapple fuck him, because that's where he might have a bit of an advantage. Taking into consideration that the fact that Robert Whittaker likes to keep his hands low just because of his karate stance, he probably will be ready for any type of shot that Kelvin Gastelum wants to take from a takedown perspective, and he'll be able to dig those underhooks, sprawl on him, and keep this fight on the feet. I think Robert Whittaker has some decent takedown defense, so I don't think he's going to be overly threatened in those spots. But if this fight does get taken to the ground, I think that Gastelum will have the advantage from the jiu-jitsu aspect here. With that said, I think that Whittaker will keep this fight on the feet for the entirety of the 25 minutes, for at least the majority of the 25 minutes, and outstrike Kelvin Gastelum en route to a decision victory. Again, the line is a little bit wide. I don't mind people parlaying it because I do think that he is a good spot to win this weekend. But as a straight spot, minus 260 is a little bit too steep for me here, considering the possible chin issues that could rear its head in this fight. Again, Kelvin Gastelum does have some solid power on his shots, but the last time we saw him knock anybody out was against Michael Bisping, who was making a quick turnaround after he had gotten rocked, dropped, and then quickly submitted by GSP just 3 weeks earlier. How they even approved Michael Bisping to take the short notice fight against Kelvin Gastelum is beyond me, but that's the last time we've seen Gastelum actually torch anybody and put them clean out. So, yeah, I like Whittaker here, and I'll take him to win this fight via decision. All right, let's see what the chat's saying here, and then I'm going to get up on out of here. Mystic Sosa is saying Bellator studies took up all my time. Yeah, I got to hop into that as soon as I am done this stream. More with less letting us know that Stevens is moving up to 155. Yep, good point. Cayman Rider is saying Gastelum is a 2-1 underdog. I think Robert should win, but man, yeah, that again, I agree that the line is a little bit too wide here. Bruce Jackson is on Whittaker all day, every day. I like it. I like it. Cayman Rider is saying Robert Whittaker has a chin, is a little shaky, even he has great recovery. Yeah, at a certain point though, it's gonna crack. Noah Allen is saying Whittaker's fight to lose. If he repeats his plan versus Cannonier, you think he should win decisively? Yeah, I agree. Palive LA is saying Robert via decision. I like that. Ice Wallow. I'm not gonna get to the rest of that. Rob spams the same 1-2 head kick combo. You think someone would have developed a game plan to get around it besides Izzy? Yeah, I don't think Gastelum will be able to capitalize on that. Luke Fulton is saying he likes the Gastelum KO prop. I think that's a good angle to take here if you are looking to take Whittaker, or sorry, if you are looking to take Gastelum, because I don't see him winning this fight over 25 minutes. I think it would have to be a knockout. Gastelum by KO is plus 450. So that's kind of the approach you should take if you're looking to back Gastelum here. Jeremy Wallen is saying, how significant is Kelvin's wrestling going to be in this fight? It could be significant if he's successful with it, but I think that Whittaker has decent enough takedown defense to keep this fight on the feet, or at least good enough get ups that he should be able to get back to his feet and nullify that part of Gastelum's game. Luke Fulton is saying Gastelum could get in and land on Izzy. He will land on Bobby, and with his gym being questionable at the moment, I don't know. Yeah, that's exactly what's kind of keeping me from fully being on Whittaker. I think Whittaker wins, but yeah, it is iffy. I'm just making sure that I'm not getting past any comments or questions that I definitely want to address. Hunter M is saying 5 rounds has me worried. Yeah, that's 25 minutes for Gastelum to find the chin. For me, it's too wide, minus 270. I agree. Maybe over 2.5. Yeah, that's a good spot. Over 2.5 is not a bad spot. Is that the widely available over under? Nah. Over 2.5 is minus 225. The over under is actually set at 4.5, and it's minus 135 for the over 4.5. That has me a little bit iffy. Tristan Surehouse is saying if Whittaker loses, you think Vettori deserves a title shot? Yeah. I'm trying to think who else there would be that deserves it, but yeah, he's the guy that comes to mind. Acai, Fueled Mountaineer, what's up, my guy? If Romero couldn't do anything in the wrestling department, Kevin won't be able to do anything either. And at the end of the Heinisch fight, Kevin was gassed. If you play Kelvin, might as well play him by KO. I agree. Noah Allen is saying if you're betting on Kelvin to wrestle fuck Whittaker, I'd say you're burning your money. All right, last question here. Urban Men of New Jersey, that parlay of the night I commend the other day hit, if you remember, Impa, Sasha inside the distance, Mackenzie Dern money line, Arnold Allen money line, and Vettori Holland over 4.5. Good shit. All right. That's pretty much the end of the stream. I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. That is the best way to show your boys some support. Let me audit you guys real quick. Let's see how many likes we actually got on this bitch. 71 likes. Come on. We had like 160 people in the stream at one point. Hit that like if you guys haven't already. That definitely helps me out. But yeah, truly appreciate some of the guys that dropped the super chat as well. I appreciate you guys a lot. That's always appreciated. Never expected, but always appreciated. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap up on this podcast. Quick shout out to a couple of my sponsors here. Coolbet.com. If you guys are in Canada, there's a couple of South American countries as well as some Scandinavian countries. The countries are actually in my description below. But yeah, great bookie. You can parlay props. They usually have great odds. I actually have my lock of the night play placed on Coolbet because they had the best odds for at the time that I wanted to place it. as well as the Patreon. Make sure you guys check out Patreon. That's where you guys get early access to the breakdowns, as well as all my picks, as well as the best bets and props article that I'm going to be looking to drop tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so I'll drop it tomorrow, where I go over every single bet or every single fight, give you the best bet and best prop for every single spot, as well as giving you my confidence rating so you guys can see how confident I am on those spots as well. So appreciate all the support. Shout out to everybody that's watching the live streams. As you guys already know, this Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, this is the spot. This is the spot for you guys to get all your information. And then lastly, a couple more live streams that I'm going to be doing throughout the week. Thursday afternoon, noon Eastern, we're going to be doing the DFS show on Sal Vetchi's channel, where I give you guys my lock of the night play, dog of the night play, fade of the night, and sleeper of the night. Not saying that those are my actual bets, but that's just from a DraftKings perspective. Then same night, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, propping you up, me and Cody. Obviously, the show that a lot of people, pretty much that's the biggest show that everybody loves. So I'm glad that me and Cody are still doing that. 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday. I'll see you guys on my channel. And then Friday, I'll be doing a live weigh-in stream. I believe it's going to be noon Eastern that the weigh-ins are going to kick off. I'll be doing from noon until the stare downs are done. So you guys can join me in the chat. Just going to be talking some shit. No real agenda other than just to watch the weigh-ins. And then the same night, the Ultimate Weigh-In Show, we're going to be doing the second edition of that. The first one got a great reception. I believe we got over 3,500 views on that shit. Hoping to get it up to the 6,000s eventually. But we might with the star-studded lineup that I got coming up for you guys. This weekend, this Friday, it's going to be me, Clint from Die Hard MMA Podcast. It's going to be MMA Prediction Crew, and it's going to be Bleed. So a little bit of an odds reunion there, but I'm very much looking forward to that stream. Looking forward to breaking down the fights with the wins in mind with my guys on Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going head-to-head with Bellator, so you guys can watch it on the replay if you want, but 9 p.m. Eastern is my spot on Friday nights. That's where I get the most traffic, and I'm hoping that you guys are able to tune in for that show. All right. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I'll see you guys on Thursday afternoon on Sal Vetchi's channel for the DFS show. And also, if you guys want to watch the pre-recorded podcast that I did where I go a little bit more in depth on all these breakdowns, that's going to be dropping by midnight tonight. So make sure you guys keep your eyes peeled for that. All right. Peace out. Good luck on your bets this week. And thanks for joining me as always.